This is Miles. Still breathing, still broadcasting, still here. If you're hearing this, maybe that means you're still out there too. It's been silent on this frequency for a long while. Long enough for the metal to gather frost around its dials. Long enough for the cables to forget the sound of a human voice. I had to clean the ash off the transmitter panel with an old toothbrush. Took me nearly an hour. The soot had crept into everything, like time itself was trying to erase us. But the transmitter still hums, and the frequency still holds. They used to say the first thing to go in a crisis is the signal. That was back when the world thought crisis meant a power outage or a missed paycheck. But this is different. This isn't collapse. It's evaporation. I don't know who I'm talking to anymore. Maybe no one. Maybe only the ghosts wrapped around these wires. But silence is worse than madness. Silence makes the mind chew on itself. So I speak. I speak into the ash. It's been 21 days. 21 sunless days since Yellowstone bled into the sky and turned morning into morning. The eruption was violent, yes, but it's the ash that's doing the killing. Not fire, not lava, just a fine gray powder that chokes the world slowly, gently like a lullaby with no ending. This is Miles, still broadcasting, still surviving. 21 days. That's how long it's been since I last saw the sun. Funny. How you think you'll remember the last time you saw something that meant everything. But I don't. I remember the heat on my hands. Maybe. I remember a brightness through the window. But not the color, not the shape. It's as if the sky swallowed it in shame, and my memory agreed to forget. The ash isn't falling anymore, not here, it's just suspended. The air holds it like breath held too long. Everything is dim, timeless. I've stopped counting hours. I sleep when I can, eat what I find. We've entered a season with no name, and while we live inside this gray stillness, something colder stirs beneath. Let me explain. Sulfur dioxide is rising. That's what happens when a supervolcano exhales. That sulfur bonds with water vapor in the upper atmosphere and forms sulfuric acid. The droplets reflect sunlight, cooling the Earth's surface. It's called global dimming. Within months, if the models hold, our average temperatures will fall by several degrees. You might think that sounds like relief in a warming world. It's not. It means crops fail. It means growing seasons vanish. It means famine and respiratory collapse. The temperature drops and so does the oxygen. The ash clogs photosynthesis in plants and algae alike. And when the base of the food chain shatters, everything else follows. Before she went silent, Dr. Tran, climate physicist, good friend, told me the Pacific fish stocks had collapsed. Lakes coated in ash, algae bloomed dead zones. Nothing for the fish to eat, nothing for us to eat. This is a chain reaction made of silence. And here we are. Standing at the other end of that chain, trying not to pull, I sit by the bunker's airlock some nights just to listen. No bird song, no engines, no wind, just that low hum in my ears, the sound of a planet trying to hold its breath a little longer. I heard the news about Ingrid's child yesterday. Word travels differently now. No phones, no alerts, just people passing truth in torn paper scraps and hoarse voices over ration lines. But it always reaches you eventually. They say the baby died in the night, quietly. No one noticed at first. Ingrid had sealed off the south corridor of the shelter, tried to rig a filtration unit from pre-fall HVAC parts. She was smart, careful. She wrapped the vents in cotton and charcoal, changed the cloth twice daily, did everything right, but the ash found its way in anyway. It always does. It's not the thick, obvious stuff you can sweep off your porch. It's the microscopic kind, glass particles small enough to ride air, sharp enough to slice lungs. The baby stopped breathing sometime before dawn. They tried CPR. They tried prayer. When the air is poison, love isn't enough. Her husband hasn't spoken since. He just sits, holding one of the baby's socks like it still contains something sacred. Maybe it does. I won't judge. There's no proper way to grieve in the gray. No rituals for mourning in the ash, only silence. And the weight of memory pressing in where oxygen used to live. I didn't know Ingrid well, but I knew the shape of her courage. If you could hear it in how she spoke about the future, like it was still a place she intended to visit. Now she's only trying to survive the past. If you're listening, Ingrid, I heard your lullaby humming through the ductwork last night. It didn't reach the child, but it reached me. I used to study this earth, map it, measure it, explain it in decimals and strata and forecasts. I thought I understood it, thought I could predict when the sky would break, but I was wrong. Now I watch the same earth swallow what it once cradled. The same sky I once measured in degrees of blue now forgets its own name. People ask why I still broadcast, why I still speak into a void that may never speak back. I think it's because silence is too much like death, and words, fragile as they are, still carry weight, still carry warmth. Maybe the broadcast isn't for you. Maybe it's for me. Maybe I need to believe that if I keep describing the world, some part of it will remember how to be real again. So I talk about ash, about breath, about the memory of warmth, about the color blue, because maybe the world just needs reminding. This is Miles, still breathing, still transmitting, still dreaming of sky. I keep trying to remember that last sunrise. Not for science, not to timestamp the beginning, but because I want it to mean something now that it's gone. I think it was a Tuesday, or maybe a Friday. Time used to matter like that. There was orange in the light. I remember that part, the color folding over the rooftops like a warm breath. It hit my coffee mug and made the steam shimmer. I thought to myself, it's going to be a good day. And then it ended. Not suddenly, no dramatic cracking. Open of the world, just a stillness. A silence so deep, the birds didn't come back from it. By noon, the light had already begun to flatten. A dusted ceiling over the sky, stretching from mountain ridge to coast. By evening, the sun was a smear. Then it was gone. There's a kind of betrayal in that. How the sky didn't scream when it changed. How it just closed. We built everything on the idea that the sun would rise again. Always. Every day. That was the first contract we had with this earth. We never thought it could break. And now, here we are, 22 days later, still waiting for that signature of light to return. This is Miles, still remembering, still recording, still trying to find color in the gray. The hardest part to explain is how time feels now. You don't notice shadows until they're gone, but they anchor you. They remind you where you stand and when. Now we drift. The ash has made a permanent dusk, the kind of light you'd expect before a storm, except the storm never arrives. It just waits above us, patient and endless. I used to set alarms, had a morning routine. Now I eat when I remember, sleep when my body demands it, wake in confusion. The clocks still tick, but they lie. We've left behind the pulse of daylight and fallen into something slower, something formless. People are forgetting what noon looks like. We're losing the vocabulary of morning, of blue, of warmth. The human body, it turns out, was never made for grayscale. We're creatures of rhythm, and rhythm requires contrast. I've had to write the days down, force the structure back in. A little line scratched each evening into the wall beside the comms unit. It's crude, but it's the only way I still believe in duration. That there's a before and after, not just this suspended gray breath. Sometimes I think we're not surviving anymore. We're just floating in time's pause button. Jack says, maybe that's a gift. Maybe this in-between place is a mercy. I'm not sure, but I keep recording. Because if the world is frozen, maybe words are the only thing still moving. I played her voice again last night. Dr. Rosalind Tran, voice of reason, of sharp edges and soft pauses. She called 2 days before the eruption reached its height. Said she wasn't sleeping. Said the algae were dying. She was tracking photosynthetic collapse across the Pacific Rim. When ash coats the surface of a lake, it doesn't just dim the light. It erases the possibility of growth. No light, no algae, no algae, no oxygen, no fish, and then nothing. She said it would start with the plankton, the quiet things, the microscopic chorus that keeps the oceans breathing. Said we'd lose them first, then the lakes, then everything that swims, and after that, the people who depended on them. We are collapsing from the bottom up, she told me. That was the last thing I ever heard from her. I saved the recording, not just because it was scientific, though it was brilliant, but because of how her voice broke when she said it. As if she knew she was describing the beginning of the end. As if she felt it under her skin already. I hope she's still alive. Somewhere inland, somewhere far from the dying lakes and the salt-choked tides. But hope doesn't carry the weight it used to. We built our cities by the water, trusted the tides. Now the shores are silent and the rivers are slowing down. And every time I drink from my filtered supply, I wonder, how many more days do the lakes have left to give? Jack heard it first. He's better with frequencies than I am. Can feel a shift before it becomes a sound. Says the static speaks to him, though not in words, in absence, in shape. We were running diagnostics on the transmitter's lower band when it pulsed. Brief, brittle, like a thread being tugged from far away. The signal was weak, scattered, but distinct. A voice, cut in half by distance and dust. I recorded what I could. The Alive Montana, Facility 7, Green. That was it. A location, a possibility, a glimmer, or a trap. I won't pretend to know what's real anymore, but there was color in the word green. A weight, like something trying to survive despite the ash. A greenhouse? A safe zone? A desperate lie? I asked Jack what he thought. He didn't answer at first, just adjusted the dials and stared at nothing. Then he said, if someone's lying in this world, at least that means someone's still speaking. I've looped the signal on playback, trying to clean it up. Haven't succeeded yet, but I'll keep trying. Because in a world where time has collapsed and science is whispering its last breath, sometimes it's the static that saves you. This is Miles. Still broadcasting, still reaching, still here. I watched a trade happen yesterday. Half a can of beans for a single surgical mask. The kind you used to find in every corner pharmacy. The kind we once discarded after a single use. Now, it's barter gold. A lifeline pressed over the mouth like a prayer stitched in elastic. In the new economy, breath is the only currency that matters. The filters are running low. Cloth masks soaked in vinegar. Coffee filters wrapped in gauze. Old t-shirts cut and layered like makeshift shields. We adapt, but the ash doesn't care. It seeps into cloth, into skin, into thought. It waits at every threshold like a polite death. Hospitals, if you can call them that now, are running on thread and hope. There's no more stockpile, no more shipments. The last delivery I heard of was a month ago, and it was looted before it crossed the border into Idaho. And yet people are surviving, barely, wheezing their way into tomorrow. I've seen a man give away his last mask to a child he didn't know. No hesitation, just a nod and the surrender of breath. That's what heroism looks like now. Not bullets, not battles, just the small, defiant act of letting someone else breathe. And still the ash drifts, soft as snowfall, sharp as glass, This is Miles, still breathing through paper, still surviving through sound. Her voice cracked when she said the boy's name. Eli, 5 years old, bright eyes, drew suns on the cinderblock walls of the triage center, dozens of them, yellow, always yellow, overlapping, stretching high. He used crayon stubs. They found them in the pocket of his coat after. Mara's a nurse, not by profession anymore, just by endurance. She runs a makeshift ward out of a shuttered schoolhouse near Twin Falls. No lights, no real ventilation, just hope soaked into gauze and the echo of children coughing in the halls. She said Eli refused to believe the sun was gone, said it was just hiding, that if he drew enough, maybe it would come back. Maybe the sky had forgotten how to shine and just needed a reminder. He died yesterday, lungs full of ash, blood in the foam, no medication left. Just a hand on his back as the world dimmed one last time. Mara didn't cry while telling me. She only asked if I could say his name over the airwaves, so someone would remember him, so someone else would know there was a boy once who believed in light. Eli. That's what I'm doing now, saying his name into the static, into the gray, because the sky may not be listening anymore, but maybe you are. Ash isn't just dust, it's weaponized memory. Volcanic ash contains crystalline silica, tiny, jagged shards, too small to see, too sharp to forgive. You breathe them in, and they lodge in the soft alveoli of the lungs. The body tries to fight. It builds scar tissue, more and more, until the breath can't move. It's called silicosis, a disease once confined to miners and stonecutters. Now, it's a sentence written into the air itself. No cure, only delay, only decline. The first signs are easy to mistake. Fatigue, dry cough, the occasional wheeze. But it grows louder. The breath shallows. The blood darkens. Voices fall quiet, not from fear, but from the slow surrender of oxygen. I've felt it sometimes. That tightness. That invisible hand. Pressing down. I ration my time near the hatch. Only 15 minutes outside the sealed zone now. Any longer, and my chest aches for hours. But what choice is there? We weren't meant to live in sealed containers. We weren't built to fear our own lungs. Sometimes I think the silence isn't just from the death. It's from the breathlessness. From people who can't afford to speak because it costs too much air. So I'll speak for them while I still can. This is Miles, still breathing. Barely. Still bearing witness. My brother's name was Caleb. He was a firefighter in Seattle, the kind who ran into burning buildings, not because it was brave, but because it was necessary. That was always his way. He believed in duty like most people believe in gravity. When the eruption started, the evacuation orders came slow. Seattle was already choked with displaced families from the first ash drift. Caleb stayed behind, said he couldn't leave the retirement home downtown, said the generator was still working, that some of the residents were too weak to move. I told him to run, begged him. He just said, "You go. I'll wait." And so he did. By the time the ash bloom reached the coast, the roads were impassable. The vents had failed. There were no filters left. The home was buried in silence. I haven't heard his voice since that call, but I still have the recording. The last thing he said was, "Tell Mom I kept the fire alive as long as I could." He meant the generator, but I think it was something more. A spirit, a flicker in the dark, something human that didn't want to go out quietly. Sometimes I wonder what he heard in that final hour. Whether the silence arrived all at once or crept in gently. I wonder if he thought someone would come. This is Miles, still remembering, still waiting to forgive the world for what it took. I passed through Boise once just after the collapse. There were no signs of struggle, no wreckage, no screams, just an immense imperfect silence, as if the city had exhaled once and never found its way back. I remember the skyscrapers first. Ghost towers. Not broken, just empty. Windows filmed with ash. Elevators dead in their shafts. Each one standing like a gravestone for ambition. These buildings were meant to pierce clouds. Now they rise only to disappear into the gray ceiling above. Cars lined the streets, still parked in tidy rows, as if their owners thought they'd be back in an hour. Some doors left open, a half-drunk coffee still in a cup holder, a child's drawing fluttering against a cracked windshield, held in place by a plastic sun-shaped magnet. But it's not the visuals that haunt you, it's the sound. Or rather, the lack of it. Cities used to hum. Sirens, footsteps, laughter, traffic, pigeons arguing over breadcrumbs. Even the neon buzz had its rhythm. Now, walking through one is like moving through the chest of a corpse. Everything still shaped like life, but none of it beating. The roads are soft underfoot now, coated in layers of drifting ash. It muffles your steps, makes you feel like you're trespassing in your own species. And sometimes I think we never really built these cities for us. We built them to forget we were still animals, to climb upward and pretend we'd earned the sky. But the sky remembered, and the ash came. 2 nights ago, I caught a transmission from a rogue relay, shortwave bounce off the old high-altitude antenna systems. Brief, distorted, but real. The Denver transit tunnels. Operational. Receiving survivors. No confirmation, no signature. Just those few broken words looped in intervals as if left behind by a voice too tired to keep speaking. Denver. Underground. It's not impossible. The city had an old freight network, abandoned rail corridors, and emergency shelters from the Cold War era. I remember hearing about them in graduate school. Concrete mazes buried beneath the city grid. I've traced what I can. The frequency originated somewhere near Cheyenne Mountain, then bounced northeast. That tells me someone's either moving east, or they want others to. Jack thinks it's bait. Could be. Could be a lure to siphon supplies from the desperate. But I've learned something since the sky turned gray. Even lies require effort, and effort means someone's still alive. So I'll record the coordinates at the end of this broadcast, just in case, for whoever's left out there trying to outrun the ash, for whoever still dreams of walking beneath concrete instead of sky. We've been reaching upward for centuries. Maybe now the answer's below us. Still breathing, still listening, still here. I used to walk with her through downtown Portland. Lena loved the city's contradictions. The bookstore beside the punk bar. The rooftop gardens above the old stone churches. We'd weave through the streets like we belonged to something ancient and new all at once. She'd point to the buildings and say, "We're trying to climb out of something, aren't we?" I think we were. Every tower, every glowing sign, every rooftop bar, we built them to rise above the dirt, above the floodplain, above the memory of hunger and cold. Concrete was our prayer, steel our chorus. But it turns out the sky has weight too. When Yellowstone erupted, it didn't roar. It smothered. The ash didn't fall like rain. It settled like shame. Roofs buckled, not from impact, but from accumulation. Like the planet had decided to remind us how fragile our altitude really was. I wonder now what Lena would say if she could see the city buried under its own ambition. If she'd trace her fingers over the ash-dusted windows and whisper to the silence, "I knew you were waiting." I haven't spoken her name out loud in months. It sticks in my throat. But I remember her laugh when she leaned against the fire escape railing and asked me why geologists always look so sad. I told her, because we've studied every way the world ends. And yet, here I am, still climbing through memory, still falling through sky. Something landed near the transmitter this morning. At first I thought it was wind, though there's barely such a thing anymore. Then I heard it, a song. Not digital, not human. A tremble of sound so fragile it felt like memory. It was a bird, covered in ash, wings shaking, a single threadbare creature clinging to the edge of a concrete ledge. And it sang, not because anyone was listening, not because it was safe, but because singing was the only thing left to do. I held my breath the whole time, afraid I'd scare it off, afraid it wasn't real. And for a few minutes, the bunker felt like a church, not of belief, but of endurance. The bird flew off eventually, disappeared into the colorless air like it had never been, but it left behind something I can't explain. A small refusal, a reminder. We aren't the only ones who remember the world. There's still music somewhere in the silence, still a note carried between the particles of ash. If that bird could find the will to sing, then maybe we still have time to find the will to listen. This is Miles, still here, still recording, still waiting for the sky to sing back. I used to love the sound of rain, not just for what it meant, clean air, growth, the end of thirst, but for how it made the world feel alive. A rhythm on rooftops, a pulse through leaves, an intimacy between sky and soil. But that's gone now. What falls isn't water. It's memory turned corrosive. They call it black rain, but the truth is, it's not the color that kills you. It's what's inside. After the eruption, sulfur dioxide was released into the stratosphere, tons of it drifting high above the breathable layer. Up there, it mingles with moisture, forming sulfuric acid droplets. When it falls, it scalds the skin, burns crops, etches patterns into glass. Yesterday, I left a can outside the hatch for 10 minutes. When I picked it up, the label had curled inward. The rim hissed when touched by water. If the ash was suffocation, the rain is corrosion. It doesn't just choke, it unravels. There were a few gardens still fighting, greenhouses sealed tight, crops grown with care, but even glass cracks under acid, even hope leaks under pressure. I remember the old phrase, "Don't curse the rain." Now I understand the wisdom in it, because when the rain turns cruel, it isn't just the plants that die. It's what we believed rain was for. This is Miles, still broadcasting, still boiling water 3 times before drinking, still listening to the world dissolve, one droplet at a time. Petra's voice came through the West Channel today. She's a former agronomist, Salt Lake City, used to run a teaching farm for inner city schools, letting kids grow herbs and greens. Learned that food doesn't begin in foil. When the ash came, she turned the old high school into a greenhouse, shattered windows patched with tarp and plastic sheets, melted snow for irrigation, LED lights scavenged from solar rigs before they failed. It worked for a while. She grew kale, tomatoes, mint, said the mint was for morale more than medicine, said a smell that wasn't death could keep you sane. She told me about the moment it changed. The sky had been quiet, and then it wasn't. The clouds shifted in a way that felt wrong. Not thunderclouds. Heavier, too slow. The rain came in fine needles. Didn't hurt at first. But the plants felt it before she did. She said they curled, one leaf at a time. Like they were in pain. A slow folding. A silent scream. By morning, the mint had liquefied. The tomatoes split down the middle, hollow and black. She tried everything. Changed the pH of the soil, covered the rows with salvaged glass. But the rain wasn't in the soil. It was in the air. It was in everything. "I don't know if I can do it again," she said. And then there was a pause. One of those long ones that you don't interrupt. The kind where a voice decides if it still belongs to the world. "I thought if I could keep one green thing alive," she finally whispered, "maybe we wouldn't vanish." That was her offering. A garden not just for food, but for faith. And now the garden is gone. This is Miles, still remembering the mint, still mourning what tasted like peace. Petra's last message wasn't long. Just a quiet frequency loop, low and deliberate, repeating the same phrase every 12 seconds. "Tell the earth I tried." No name, no coordinates, no request for help. She must have known it was over. The soil burned, the seed banks breached. Whatever remained of her rooftop sanctuary likely collapsed under the second wave of black rain. But she broadcast anyway, not to be saved, to be heard. There's a power in that. Sometimes, when everything else has been stripped, when a survival becomes repetition and memory becomes rot, the only rebellion left is the act of witnessing, of saying, I saw what mattered. I fought for what grew. I tried to keep something alive. I looped her voice once more before powering down the channel. Let it echo off the walls. Let it settle into the dust. Tell the earth I tried. We will, Petra. I will. Just before I signed off tonight, the signal cracked. A faint pulse on the emergency band. So quiet, I almost mistook it for background interference. But it repeated. Clicks, evenly spaced. Paused. Repeated again. I ran it through the old decoder. TRANSIT. And then coordinates. Too faint to read the full string. But the beginning traced east. Toward Wyoming. Possibly beyond. It could be automated. A remnant of military logistics. Or it could be something else. Someone else. We've spent so long rooted in place, underground, inside, listening, waiting. Maybe it's time to move. I've logged the signal and patched it into the repeater. If you're receiving this and you're mobile, trace the clicks, follow the line. Somewhere in the ash, something might still be moving. This is Miles. Still breathing, still decoding, still following the hum beneath the dust. Jack came back yesterday. He'd been gone 3 days. Headed west into the ridgelands. Said he needed air that hadn't memorized our names. He told me about the lake. Used to be called Glacier Hollow, I think. Wasn't much more than a wide basin fed by meltwater, surrounded by pine, before the trees withered under the ash. But when Jack got there, it wasn't water anymore. It was something else. He said the surface had turned glass. Not ice, not soot. Glass. He said the top was molten once, maybe superheated from trapped geothermal vents or a flash pyroclastic flow. Then it cooled too fast, sealed itself into a skin. Beneath it, the lake still breathes. Slow currents move under the crust like thoughts under sleep. Jack said he saw light, pulsing under the surface like a heartbeat caught in stone. Gold and blue flickering. Not natural, but not artificial either. Something in between. Something unsure whether it was dying or being born. He called it beautiful, and I believe him. Because beauty now is anything that resists decay, anything that does not immediately collapse beneath the weight of this new world. A lake that once burned, now frozen in a breath of glass. A mirror, maybe, to what we've become, hardened, still, but not gone. This is Miles, still recording, still listening to secondhand miracles. Jack brought something back, a shard of the lake. Obsidian, he says, though it glows at the edges, not with heat, but with memory. I held it for a moment. It was warm. Not hot like danger, not dead like ash. Warm like something held close to the chest. Like a thing meant to remember touch. It's rough around the edges, but polished in places, as if water or time or grief had smoothed it down. I turned it in the dim light of the broadcast room, and it caught something in the air. A glint. A flicker. And I realized this rock had survived what most of us hadn't. It sat beneath the sky while it broke. Swallowed flame. Drank acid rain. Slept under ash. And still, it held something inside. A pulse, a whisper, a warmth. I set it on the console beside the mic. Let it catch the hum of the signal. Maybe it's listening. Maybe it's remembering. We talk so much about what's been lost. But maybe some things don't vanish. Maybe they just retreat into stone. Into silence. Waiting for the world to soften enough to hear them again. This is Miles. Still holding the warmth, still wondering what the earth has chosen to keep. I ran a scan this morning. The seismic grid, what's left of it, picked up a tremor, deep beneath the Rockies, a long, low frequency, not violent, but ancient. It's magma, moving, not surging yet, but shifting, repositioning itself like a beast in sleep, rolling over, and every part of me that once studied fault lines and thermal drift feels it. That tingle in the spine that says, this isn't done. After Yellowstone, most thought the worst had passed, but supervolcanoes don't care about our calendars. They breathe in centuries. They move in silence. They remember, if the chamber beneath the Rockies is swelling, there could be another rupture, another wave. Jack says maybe it's just an echo, a hiccup, a sigh. But I've seen what comes after sighs. I haven't said anything to the others yet. No reason to spread fear with no shape. But I've begun moving the equipment to lower shelves, checking the pressure seals, updating the evacuation map I haven't needed in weeks. The ash already took the sky. I don't know if we can survive losing the ground too. This is Miles, still watching the earth turn in its sleep, still wondering if it's dreaming of fire. It came through just after midnight. A voice, clearer than anything I've heard in weeks, cutting clean through the static, as if it had been waiting for the exact moment my frequency dipped into place. This is Facility 7. If you can hear this, you're not alone. Come east. Avoid the salt flats. We have light. That was it. She didn't say her name, didn't repeat, didn't beg, just those words, each one pronounced like they had weight, like she knew someone was listening, and that was enough. I sat frozen for a full minute after, just listening to the silence that followed, as if it might change its mind and speak again. Facility 7. It's not on any of my maps, but I've begun marking possible routes. If Jack's Lake was west of here, this would be the first time we've heard of something functioning, growing. To the east, we have light. Those 3 words hit harder than any warning. Light means power. It means heat. Maybe food. Maybe solar rigs patched together and flickering in defiance. Or maybe it means something simpler. Someone lit a candle and refused to let the dark win. I'll boost the repeater tonight. Try to catch it again. If you're listening out there, we heard you. This is Miles. Still awake, still chasing voices in the dark, still surviving. There are children now who have never seen the stars, who will grow up thinking night is simply darker gray, that the sky has no holes in it, that wishes are made in silence, not on falling light. I heard them called the Ash Children once. Not in malice, not as curse, just as fact. Born after the event, after Yellowstone exhaled, and the world forgot how to breathe. They've never felt sun on their skin without a warning mask. Never seen shadows cast by trees. Never chased fireflies or looked up and asked, what's that one called? For them, constellations are not shapes in the heavens. They're stories told by the exhausted. Shapes drawn in ash on the bunker walls. They build worlds out of memory they never lived. And somehow, they laugh. That's what breaks me the most. Their laughter is not rooted in nostalgia. It isn't the echo of something they lost. It's new, built in the rubble, clean in its defiance. They laugh at strange things, shapes and ceiling rust, squeaky boots, the way static crackles when you clap near the mic. They remind us that life isn't inherited. It's reinvented. I don't know what they'll become, but I know this. They are not shadows of what we were. They are light waiting to happen. This is Miles, still remembering stars, still broadcasting for the ones who never saw them. Mara called last night. Her voice was tired in a way only caregivers know, frayed, quiet, but still held together by thread and duty. She said the baby lived, born in the dark under the old library annex. No power, no sterile field, just a plastic tarp, a bucket of boiled water, and hands that refused to give up. The mother didn't make it, but the child did. They named her Solace. I sat with that name for a long time after the transmission ended, turned it over like a stone in my palm. Solace, a word that doesn't deny the sorrow, A word that holds pain, gently, without trying to erase it. Mara said the birth didn't feel like triumph. It felt like resistance, a defiant act of becoming, in a world bent on decay. The baby's cry was soft, she said, hoarse, uncertain, like even her voice didn't yet believe there was space left in this world for sound. They wrapped her in a clean jacket sleeve. Mara held her until she slept. No incubator, no name tag, just warmth and skin and heartbeat. She didn't cry while telling me, but her breath wavered when she said, "It was the most human thing I've seen since the sky turned gray." Solace now breathes in a corner of that broken school, fed by powdered formula and filtered water, and a will to protect what's fragile. She won't remember the world we lost, but maybe she'll help build the one we haven't yet imagined. This is Miles, still holding space for her cry, still learning from what refuses to vanish. I heard about a man walking the central corridor near Ogallala, alone, mid-70s, wore 3 coats and a battered straw hat, pulled a rusted wagon behind him. Inside was a suitcase. He told people his name was Eli, too. Not the child, this one older, thin voice, thick glasses, said he used to teach high school literature, that once he could recite Leaves of Grass from memory. Now he carries books, just a few, worn copies, spines mended with tape and twine, and seeds, corn, beans, a pouch of wildflowers, none of them hybrid, all heritage strains. He says he's walking east to find soil that still remembers how to grow. When someone asked why the books, why not just carry the seeds, he smiled. Because the trees won't know what to be if we forget the words. There's something holy in that, not in a religious way, but in the quiet way people choose to carry meaning. He's not trying to survive. He's trying to make sure memory survives, not just what happened, but how we dreamed before it did. Stories and seeds, both useless if left unopened, both dangerous if buried too long. I hope he makes it. I hope someone opens that suitcase and finds something worth planting. This is Miles, still broadcasting, still believing in the man with the words and the roots. Sometimes I wonder, what if this silence isn't punishment? What if the ash isn't vengeance? What if the sky hasn't turned away, but is simply waiting? We were loud once, filled the world with engine and empire. We scraped the heavens, mapped the deep, stamped our names on things that lived before us. We spoke over every silence we didn't understand. Maybe this stillness is what came after, not to break us, but to see what we are when we have no one left to impress. When the noise dies, and only our breath remains. Tonight the stars are hidden again. But I imagine them, not as guides, not as gods, just as watchers, waiting for us to lower our voices, to speak gently again, to remember what it meant to be part of the earth, not just on top of it. Maybe the sky is waiting for that. And maybe so am I. This is Miles, still breathing, still beneath the silence, still dreaming of a voice worth hearing in return. I've spent the last 2 days rebuilding the repeater, stripped it down to bones, copper coils from an old wind turbine, a rusted battery cradle from a children's ride-on truck, a scavenged vacuum tube still warm from some forgotten generator. It's clumsy, but it hums, like something that remembers how to listen. The old transceiver had begun to fade. Too much static, too much time. The cold takes the fidelity first, then the strength. But I couldn't let it die. Not now. Not after Facility 7 broke through the silence like a voice breaking ice. I needed to hear it again, to trace the signal, to know someone else still believed in calling out. Jack helped align the antennae. We climbed what used to be a water tower, almost fell through a corroded step, but the view, God, the view, endless ash, but beneath it, potential, stillness pretending to be death. We triangulated using what's left of the NOAA grid. Based on the delay and frequency decay, Facility 7 is somewhere east of the Mississippi. Too far to walk, maybe not too far to reach. The signal's unstable but persistent. Faint pulses, like a lighthouse you can't see, only feel when your boat drifts too close to the rocks. So we listen, we calibrate, we build. From rust, from memory, from whatever still fits into a socket and says not yet. This is Miles, still tuning, still reaching, still waiting for the hum to become a voice. There's talk of Nova Scotia, of a place near the cliffs where the salt still rises but the soil remains warm. A geothermal greenhouse, some say, built decades ago for research, now reborn as sanctuary. It sounds impossible, but the rumor has weight. It keeps returning. The story goes that the ocean currents up there, what's left of the Labrador branch, still carry some heat. The Atlantic meridional overturning circulation hasn't fully collapsed. Not yet. It's slower, shallower, like an exhausted breath, but enough, maybe, to keep pockets of life clinging to the edges. They grow kale, supposedly, beans, even strawberries. Filtered meltwater dripped through volcanic stone, the heat rising through vents beneath the structure like breath beneath skin. A woman I spoke to in New Hampshire swore her brother made it there, said he sent one message through shortwave before vanishing into the crackle. They have glass, they have green, they have children. I don't know if it's true, but the way she said it, like she was speaking scripture, like she was holding onto a hymn. It's strange. How we become pilgrims, in the absence of maps. I've pinned it on the board anyway. Marked it with a green tack. Not for planning, but for remembering that stories too can survive collapse. Maybe the coldest place still holds warmth. Maybe hope clings where the tide forgets to sweep. This is Miles, still charting rumors like constellations, still believing in green. I replayed Rosalind's message today, not for comfort, there's none in her voice, but for clarity, for a reminder that the collapse wasn't sudden, it was earned. Line by line, layer by layer, she sent it weeks before she went silent. The AMOC is destabilizing, she said. If it flips, we're not talking about storms or sea rise. We're talking about hemispheric failure, atmospheric disruption, ocean death, cascading collapse. She always had a way of speaking doom, like poetry. Said the Atlantic conveyor was slowing. Said Europe would freeze, while the tropics drowned in wet bulb heat. That North America wouldn't burn, it would starve. The rain patterns shattered. The photosynthetic rhythm lost. But there was a pause at the end of her recording. A breath. If the volcanic winter reaches equilibrium, she said, there might be time, a pause, a forced quiet, and in that stillness, if we survive long enough, we might get a reset. Not a return, but a beginning. It wasn't optimism, it was calculation, the math of mercy. She didn't believe in miracles. She believed in second chances forged by Ash. I haven't heard from her since. But her voice remains pinned to the wall here. A relic. A compass. We forget that forecasts are hopes in disguise, even the direst ones. This is Miles, still measuring silence in decibels, still listening for the moment a warning turns into a chance. Sometimes I wonder what these broadcasts really are. Not just messages, not just updates or warnings, but seeds. Scattered blindly across dust and ruin, hoping that somewhere someone will catch them, will bury them in memory, will water them with belief. This isn't a station anymore, it's a field. And every sentence I send is a planting. Every pause, a waiting. Every whisper, a root searching for light under collapsed skies. Jack says maybe no one's listening. That it's all bouncing off dead towers and orbiting junk, that my words echo only inside the walls that already know them. But I tell him, Echoes are proof of presence. Even if no one answers, the bounce means we're still here. We don't broadcast to be heard. We broadcast to remember we have voices. The earth has gone quiet. Yes. But that doesn't mean she's forgotten how to grow. Even deserts bloom when the timing is right. Even ash, if you press deep enough, holds a whisper of green. And maybe, long after I'm gone, someone will stumble on these tapes and press play and find not a map, but a reason to begin. This is Miles, still scattering signal like seed, still dreaming of what might take root in the static. Jack's gone. He left sometime before dawn, left a note on the comms desk, scrawled in pencil on the back of a map torn in half. I had to find the bird again. That's all it said. Not goodbye. Not I'm coming back. Just that. A line written like it was final. Like it was the only truth he still believed in. I think he meant the one we heard singing a week ago. The ash-covered creature that perched near the antenna and gave us 3 seconds of impossible music. 3 seconds that changed how the world felt. A single sound that reminded us there was still something left to follow. I don't know which direction Jack took. I don't know if he brought supplies or if he even wanted to. Maybe chasing song is enough for some people. Maybe he wasn't running away, but running toward. I keep replaying his last words to me. Sometimes hope isn't what saves you. Sometimes it's what makes you leave before you're ready. I can't blame him. There are days I envy the ones who step into the unknown simply because the known has grown too quiet. Wherever you are, Jack, if you find that bird, tell it we heard it. Tell it we stayed. Because it sang. This is Miles. Still waiting for a song. Still at the desk. Still not gone. I spent the day recording. Not a broadcast, something quieter, something slower. I found the old tapes, the reel-to-reel unit I'd set aside for later, as if time would stretch open for convenience. Cleaned the heads, rewound the dust, spliced together silence. Then I pressed record. I spoke her name for the first time in months. Lena. Her name filled the room like breath after drowning. I don't know if you're out there, I said into the tape, or if the light found you first. But if you hear this, know I carried you with me, even in the silence. I told her about the children, the glass lake, the man with the suitcase. I told her about the black rain and the voice from Facility 7. I layered the signal, the same Morse string from before, over the end of the tape. A heartbeat of code that spells TRANSIT, followed by coordinates pointing east. It's all there now. Not because I expect her to hear it, but because sound has weight, and memory without form drifts too far. I'll leave the tape running when I go. Let it loop. Let it become part of the hum. And maybe, someday, someone will find it. Someone who still has ears for stories. Someone who will know we didn't vanish quietly. I always said the signal was for strangers. But this one was for her. This is Miles, still holding her name like a compass, still speaking into tape like it can carry love through ash. I was packing when it came through. Just a flicker at first, then a tone, a steady pitch across the band, cutting clean through static like bone through frost. I froze, watched the dial tremble. Then it shifted again. A voice. We see you. Keep walking. Light ahead. No call sign, no repetition, just that. But I know what I heard, and I know it wasn't my own voice this time. The words weren't desperate, they weren't frantic, they were calm, as if whoever spoke them believed, not just in the message, but in the ones who might hear it. We see you. That's what did it. That's what broke me. Just a little, because so much of this journey has been about not being seen, not being heard, speaking into absence, loving into memory, surviving beneath the weight of vanished eyes. But that voice, it felt like a hand through fog, like someone lighting a candle without knowing if the wind had already claimed the room. So I've packed everything I can carry: water, mask filters, the tapes, not because I know what's out there, but because I've spent too long in here. The repeater stays, the signal loops, and I walk east. This is Miles, still seen, still walking, still chasing the voice that saw me first. It's quiet now. Not empty, just quieter. The kind of quiet that comes after decision. The kind that waits, not with fear, but with breath held on the edge of something new. The station hums behind me. Tapes loop, batteries warm against the chill. I've left a note in case anyone stumbles across this place. It doesn't explain much. Just says, we were here. We remembered. We tried. Outside, the world is the same, gray and ash-laced. But today it feels less like ending and more like pause, like a page waiting to be turned by fingers not yet numb. I keep thinking about what I'll say if I ever see someone again. Not hello or where were you, but did you keep the names? Did you carry the stories? Did you dream, even when it hurt? The stars are still gone, but I've memorized them. The constellations live in my chest, mapped in scar and signal and song. And if I reach morning, if light ever breaks through this ceiling of ash, I'll find a child, or a stranger, or a bird, and I'll say, those are stars. We used to make wishes on them. We used to think they were fire. But really, they were reminders that even the darkest sky had holes in it. And through those holes, light waited. This is Miles. Still breathing, still dreaming, still walking toward whatever waits beyond the silence. If we ever reach morning, I'll describe the stars to you.